Hello, once again, I am back. Just a few days ago, I put out a video where I was sort of discussing why sometimes some colors simply just do not print the way you see them on your screen. That video I did on the computer so you can see how the display of a standard image, especially certain colors in that rectangle full of color patches, cannot simply be printed on paper because those colors exceed the ability of any, I repeat, any printer out there using standard photo inks. Now, some printers have fluorescent inks. Maybe those can, but not the ones that we use for our regular, everyday photo printing. I'm going to show you a standard image. I'm not going to tell you what printer I used to print it on. I'm not going to tell you what inks I used to print it with. I'll wait till the end to disclose what I did. Now, I normally don't print standard images this big, but I decided to do so this time. This is on A-sub paper, glossy. It is very, very glossy. It is extremely high quality. And I'm telling you, this video will not do it justice. When I look at this, and I compare it to what I had on the monitor, and by the way, this is important. How do you know your monitor is actually displaying your images correctly? It's just like your fever thermometer. How do you know that fever thermometer is accurately taking your internal temperature? You assume it is. You assume it is calibrated, right? A monitor has to be extremely well calibrated. Not just half-ass calibrated, but extremely well calibrated. RGB has to be completely linear, from black, all the shades of red, from the darkest to the whitest to paper white. That's 0 to 55. The same thing with green, the same thing with blue. Okay? And by being linear and being at the same slope, that means that your rendition of whatever you are looking at is going to be rendered neutral. If it is not neutral, it's going to have a color cast that you may or may not be able to detect, because your eyes will completely and easily adjust themselves to that. If you go into an office area lit up by a lot of older type fluorescent lights, everything's going to look greenish. But after a while, it doesn't. You know, it will look greenish if you walk from the outside to the indoor area, but after a while, everything starts looking neutral again. The same thing happens with your monitor. Now, my monitor is calibrated with an X-Rite i1 Pro 2 to the point where if I view that image, it is dead on neutral. Dead on neutral. Watch my video I just recently did, and you will be able to see that. Now, how do I know that my monitor is not being influenced by any ambient light hitting the surface of it? Because remember, monitors are backlit. But sometimes if you have strong enough ambient light that's the wrong color temperature, it will affect the way that image is rendered to your eyes. I work in a dark room. The lights are off. I mostly work at night. So believe me, you cannot read a book under those conditions, but you can sure edit. Okay, get used to that. I am telling you the secret to this is work in a darkened room. I've been to many professional video editing studios. They work in such dark conditions, you wonder how they don't trip over each other. It's ridiculous. I never realized that until I saw it with my eyes, and then I adopted that practice, and I have never had a match to print problem, a match from the screen to what I get on my printer problem. Ever since then, everything matches, and I got 17 printers I got to match. Another thing, every single model style of printer does not output identical. If they output it identical, then why would I bother spending $1,500 on a printer when a $50 printer could do the same job? You see what I mean? So output is always going to be different, slightly different. The closest you can get is with a good ICC profile that you create using your printer, your particular brand of paper you love, and of course the inks that you are using. Okay, that's the only way you're going to get like the best output out of that printer. But it may not match the output of another printer also profiled. You see what I mean? There's going to be slight differences. So you pick one printer model over another because you kind of like the way this output is. It's got this weird little different quality that I prefer over this one. This one is cold and impersonal. This one is warm and happy and friendly. It could be that ridiculous of a difference. But again, they will have different outputs. They will not be identical. So don't be so worried that you have two printers and their outputs are slightly different. Okay? That's a natural thing that will happen. Now, what am I looking for when I output my image that looks perfect on my computer to paper? So remember, this is ASAP paper, very glossy. So I'm looking at this central image. By the way, I want it to look normal density, not too light, not too dark. How do I know that's actually normal? Right now, my lights are not very bright. I may look bright, but these lights are not extremely bright. I need to view this under a very strong light source of the correct temperature. There's a lot of things that compose this image. It's a collage of different types of images that you are very familiar with. And then we have something that's very technical oriented. We have a black to white ramp. It's not really black, it's actually 0.2. Okay? 255 will be white, 0.2 is just above black. So here is number 2 to 24. Now on video, you cannot see this, but I see little squares getting lighter and lighter and lighter, gray. If I look at this through a backlight illumination, I will clearly see that the outer frame, these little squares are smaller than this bar. So the outer frame will be black and the inner squares will be gray, gradually getting lighter and lighter. You want to be able to see at least the first 2 or 3. Okay. Often, a printer simply cannot print separation of grays that low. It will sort of block them up. Okay. If you choose black point compensation, it will be helpful in that it will open up those possible blocked last few values. It will make them visible to your eye. Now, you want to see a linear rendition with a change of hue. So neutrally linear representation of this bar right here. From 2 all the way to basically pure white. Okay? Pure white means the same as the base of the paper. No ink was applied. I see no change in hue. Ding! So far so good, right? If I don't see a change in hue and the print looks neutral to me, then I'm looking at this image here. It's an electron scanning photomicrograph. It is black and white or monochrome. And again, the white is white, the black is black. Everything else in between, I don't see any changes in tonality and hue. Gray, completely gray, neutral throughout. And something that we are very familiar and we are able to detect immediately with our eyes. Skin tones. Whether you are very lily white, got a little bit of a tan, brown, or browner skin, it looks normal. You look at it and you go, oh, those babies, not only are they beautiful, they look normal. Look at the shadow size of their faces. That's important because often, sometimes, some combinations will cause the shadows to look a little bit bluish. Okay? You do not want that. Another thing very, very important. These transitions here. A transition is what? It's what this is. A very gradual change from dark to white. You don't want to see any jumpiness. You don't want to see any banding. Any areas where it just kind of changes abruptly to another tone. You want to see gradual transitions. I cannot detect any kind of a break up in the transitions from fully saturated to either black or white. I cannot see it. It does not exist. The same thing with the gray area. Red, blue, green, cyan, magenta, yellow is still very smooth. That's what you want to see. Ding, so far so good. This area here, this whole row here, actually these 2 rows, out of gamut, completely out of gamut. They are made that way on purpose. They actually look like neon on the computer screen. They're made that way on purpose so that in the future, if printers are ever designed to be able to reproduce those colors, they're there. They're there for us to be able to see them on paper. Of course, you got to have one hell of a good paper, okay? But do they look like they did on the screen? In other words, are the colors properly represented? These two here are almost blending together. This is a bright red. This is a more magenta pink. But they're getting too close. They're almost becoming blended into one shade. There is a difference that I can detect. Right here, these two greens, they look different on the screen. The difference on the screen is virtually a neon type effect. Here they look almost identical. That's bad. That means that this particular ink on this printer, on this paper, had a hard time reproducing those colors. But it's expected. They cannot be reproduced by anything available today. They just simply cannot be. These here actually did a much better job. Okay, the same thing here. These two magentas, they're almost the same shade. Here, you see, these blues, very difficult to reproduce. Very difficult. In fact, almost impossible. That's one of the big ones that people have a problem reproducing and they complain the most about. But anyway, it did a great job. This is a still life that they have been using for years for regular film photography. This is a Macbeth type chart, a color checker passport card as well. And again, you look at this and you say, okay, that looks normal. Trees in the fall, yellow leaves, they look fantastic. A shot what looks like to be the Grand Canyon area. Again, that looks normal to me. That does not have a color cast this way or that way. It looks pretty normal. Sunset at the beach. Well, that's a bit exaggerated. Have a look. That's way more orange than probably naturally occurred. That has been processed. Lava flow. It's got a lot of tinges of blue and browns and tans. Again, you look at it, it looks normal to you. That's the whole deal. You look at it and it looks normal. If it looked normal, you would not be complaining about it. That's the whole thing. Prints, photography is psychological. It affects you one way or another. Visually, emotionally, you look at it, that looks normal. I have nothing bad to say about it. So I accept it. And this is the kicker right here. The strawberries. The strawberries, red. Red apparently is difficult to reproduce. Red is made by what? Magenta and yellow combination of dots. Really? What about if you have proprietary red ink? That's why they introduce proprietary red ink on what? On the Pro 1000, the Pro 10, the Pro 1. You see what I mean? So, what do you guys think? This looks pretty darn perfect to me. I take it over to my screen, and the screen's rendition is also pretty much perfect, except for the exaggeration of these colors because they are made that way on purpose. So am I satisfied? Oh, extremely. Believe me, extremely satisfied with this combination. I'm going to show you another image. This is just something that I did for my son. He loves this science fiction characters or whatever they are, superheroes. I don't know what they are. That looks like the Joker there, and I don't know who the rest of the guys are. But anyway, beautiful rendition. There are some subtleties here that the screen showed, and I was able to reproduce those on paper. Now, for me to be assured that what I was going to print looked like I saw it on my screen, I soft proofed it. I viewed the image under soft proof conditions using that profile. Which profile? One that I made myself. For what printer? And here goes the letting the cat out of the bag. The XP 15000. Imagine that. 6 lousy color printer. Dye inks. And guess what inks I'm using? Precision colors. Yellow, magenta, cyan, red, gray, and photo black. That's it. Let me make sure. Yellow, magenta, cyan, red, gray, and photo black. 6 colors. And I'm able to get a standard image to print as if it was on a 12 color printer. I compare it to the one this one puts out, and I actually kind of prefer the other one, just by the brilliance that you get from dye inks on a glossy paper. So there you go. That printer costs about $350. It is refillable. You can turn it into a chipless type printer. It's a little bit difficult to do. Some people succeed, some people do not. I succeeded. PC succeeded at it. You can refill your original cartridges. They just simply will not be resettable. And you will then have an indication of always having ink on the screen. So you got to make sure that you have a good refilling or topping off procedure where you do it every 3 or 4 weeks, depending on your printing habits. You saw that. If I can do that, and by the way, guess who printed the picture of the characters? My 9-year-old grandson. He did not know how to print. I just told him step by step what to do. He did all the clicks, he did all the setup, he did all of the lining up of the image and sent it to the printer, and that's what came out. When you take it over to your monitor under soft proof conditions, that's one thing. So you cannot compare. You cannot compare. Stop trying to do that. Don't do that. You cannot compare what the print looks like to an on or non-soft proof rendition of it on your screen. And for that to be something that you can count on, your screen has to be perfectly calibrated as well. So the first thing is calibration of the screen. People who have laptops, whether they are Windows or Mac, like iMac Pros, the iMac Pro screens are very bright, contrasty, and gorgeous, but not for editing images. You have to calibrate them. Do they calibrate well? I really do not know, because I don't have any to work with. Laptops, they don't really calibrate that well either, okay, because screens, depending on your view angle, will show you a different depiction of what you are displaying. So it's very difficult. Only a stationary screen is what I would use. Whether I'm on a Mac or a Windows machine, I would only work with a screen that stays stationary. I sit on my butt. The angle of view is always identical. That way I do not see changes in density as I am looking at them varying angles of view. So again, so many factors, right? So many factors. All right, I think we covered a bunch of information here. On the third video, I'm going to show you what the PC SE Inks Pro 100 can do, especially the last version of the PC 42. So stay tuned for that. Again, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Happy printing, everyone, and bye-bye.